As we continue closer and closer to the NFL draft, the pre-draft process of teams mining as much information about every player they can has already reared its ugly head. As yesterday a story broke that while at the Senior Bowl, Devonta Smith was asked which quarterback he would rather play with, Tua Tagovailoa or Mac Jones, and Devonta Smith answered Mac Jones, and I've seen this story going all over the internet, but I'm here to tell you today, not only is this story no big deal, but two, it's lacking the correct nuance, and I'm here to give you that nuance. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from y'all. So hop down to the comments and give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe Devonta Smith will be the first receiver taken in the NFL draft? Personally, I do. I know a lot of people had the undoubtable wide receiver one going into last season is Jamar Chase, but Smitty was unbelievable. So let me know, do you think he will be the first receiver taken? And guys, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification. That way you don't miss any of my uploads, as I do constant college football content, player reviews, film analysis, or general talk style videos like this, and I'd love to have you on my push to 5,000 subscribers within my first year of a channel. Guys, if you enjoy the video, be sure to like, comment, because that really does help content creators like myself get picked up by the YouTube algorithm. But with all that being said, let's break this down. And just as a quick recap, while at the Senior Bowl, Devonta Smith was asked which quarterback he'd rather play with. He answered Mac Jones over Tua Tagovailoa. And I have a few reasons as to why this is a no big deal. And I'm going to go from the simplest first, and then we're going to break down why there's a nuance that should be talked about here that isn't even being mentioned. And I think that the nuance is the most important. Now, first and foremost, he won a Heisman with Mac Jones. I really am perplexed when I see some people making this a big deal when it's just one teammate sticking up for his teammate because they had unbelievable chemistry together. Look, even if in the practice field it was obvious that Tua was the better guy, it's going to be obvious that Devonta chooses Mac because look at the season they had together. Not only was Devonta Smith the Heisman, but Mac Jones finished in the top 5 of the Heisman voting. Najee Harris finished in the top 5 of the Heisman voting. Oh yeah, and they won a national championship, and Devonta Smith took home just about every major award you could because he was the focal point of the offense under the Mac Jones era. And it's helped him to be able to ask the question I asked at the very beginning of this video. Is Devonta Smith the number one receiver in this draft? Now, I believe Devonta Smith always had that ability. Of course he always had that ability. I've watched him play since he was a freshman. He is really, really a special talent. But nonetheless, it happened under Mac Jones. Those gaudy numbers happened under Mac Jones. And so that's the first and simplest reason. Of course he's going to pick Mac. He won the Heisman under Mac. He made history as one of the very few wide receivers to ever have the type of season he had, right? When you look at the hardware, the championships, the history, of course he's going to pick Mac Jones. But the reason that I think now I'm going to get into what requires a bit more nuance, right? Because the nuanced reason is something that I don't think many people have taken into account, and that's that Tua has already been drafted. You can't hurt his draft stock. He's already been a top 15 pick. Guys, we know how petty these pre-draft evaluations can be. You say one word wrong and you could drop a spot because there are so many different lenses in which we can look at sports through. And I think a lot of the times we get caught looking through the lens of a fan. But I want you all to put yourself in the place of a GM. And even though you're not the ones directly asking these questions, it's your scouts, it is advantageous that these players maybe fall around, right? If you could draft Mac Jones in the second round as opposed to the first round, use your first rounder on, say, a lineman or Devonta Smith, who knows, and then go nab Mac Jones in the second round, all because of this question right here. If Devonta was to say Tua, that's an advantageous position for that GM because he just got unbelievable value from Mac Jones by him falling in the draft. This type of draft manipulation happens all the time because while we don't see it as advantageous of the fans because we're looking at it from more of the player's perspective where they want to go, very few times do we put ourselves in the shoes of the GMs and see how they're trying to manipulate the draft, wrongly of course, in order to get the best value for themselves. Now, it ends up hurting people, it costs people money, but this is the game that is played in the NFL draft. And Smitty knows the game that's played, and he said, you're not fooling me, I'm no dummy. He knows what this is. Guys, what this question was that exact example I just gave. It was a team trying to mine information, hoping maybe Smitty would say Tua. We have to remember that before this year happened, Mac Jones was graded as a low-round quarterback and had a meteoric rise in his last season. So some teams are going to be hoping that they can get little tidbits, or maybe that is during his pro day he just doesn't look good, so that they can get him in a later round and not have to use their first rounder on him so that they can win the draft under the guise of having great value picks. Smitty knows this. There's no reason why he would say Tua, because if he says Tua, that could affect Mac Jones's draft stock. Smitty is simply trying to ensure that Mac Jones gets drafted where Mac Jones deserves to get drafted. That's really all this whole question is, right? As much as my first answer has truth and veracity to it, and it is a honest answer, the second one where I'm saying this is the nuance that isn't getting talked about in these articles, because Tua's already been drafted. You're not going to affect his draft stock by saying Mac Jones. If Devonta said Tua, though, you know there would be teams saying, nah, we're going to wait, and they would try and push him to the second round, because then GMs would be able to go back at the end of the day to the owners and say, look at the value I got, I deserve to stay. That's the game being played here. And Devonta Smith is far too smart for it. He saw the writing on the wall. He knows Tua's already been drafted, and he can't do anything to help Tua's draft stock. But you know whose draft stock he can help? Mac Jones. So he says Mac Jones, because it's the obvious answer in this setting right here. Tua has already been drafted. He's already gotten his payday from being a top 15 draft. Mac Jones has yet to get drafted. Devonta Smith won a Heisman, a national championship, and all of this hardware with Mac Jones. Guys, this story is a whole lot of nothing for multiple different reasons, but possibly the most important, and the one that I really wanted to talk about, was the lack of nuance that has been applied to this question in particular. And that nuance is very simple. Tua's already been drafted. Devonta Smith cannot hurt his draft stock by saying Mac Jones. However, Devonta Smith, maybe not. Maybe this doesn't move the needle at all on Mac Jones, right? Maybe this, even if he would have said Tua, it wouldn't have affected Mac's draft place. But we do know how petty this pre-draft evaluation can be. Why risk it? Why risk when you could, in theory, directly help one of your guys get drafted where they should be by simply saying Mac Jones? That's really what this situation is, and that's why this right here is a non-story that really hasn't been looked at through the correct lens and with the correct nuance, but I really wanted to break down why I thought the correct nuance was that Devonta Smith's just trying to ensure that Mac Jones gets drafted where Mac Jones deserves to get drafted, because Devonta Smith can't control where Tua got drafted. That's it. See ya.